Khorne, the blood god, the taker of skulls, the great butcher, the lord of battle and rage. He is no foppish aristocrat, no preening lord decorated with priceless robes and jewels. He is no spineless tyrant, no indifferent hypocrite fattened on total willful indulgence. He is not the reckless butcher who ever strikes without purpose, nor is he the dishonourable wretch who strikes from the shadows. No, Khorne is the warrior ascendant, the total epitome of martial glory. He is the courage that cannot be shaken. He is the pride that demands one to meet their enemies openly, face to face. He is the herald of righteous combat, the champion of simple, primal truths, stripped bare of schemes and trickery. He is the one and only God that is truly different. The one God who wears no mask, who speaks no lies. He offers no false promises, no false temptations or half-truths. He gives you power, he gives you strength, he restores the self-respect that has been beaten out of you by the boots of tyrants. He lifts you up from the dirt and grants you the esteem that you've long been denied. And with these gifts, your chains are broken, for Khorne grants you the freedom to seize your own destiny. He promises the ruin of those who would despise you and vengeance against those who have wronged you. Why should you spend your life slaving away endlessly in some dank, dark factory, making others rich while you wither away, forgotten in darkness? Why should the tax collector take the fruits of your labour, earned with your blood, your sweat, your tears, while you struggle to survive? Why should the gang boss get to laugh as he steals your rations and forces you into the deepest, deadliest parts of the mines? Why should they laugh at you as if you are beneath them? You need only please Khorne and everything changes. Everything. No longer must you bow to those who mock you, beat you, and steal from you. With every cut of your knife, with every skull taken in Khorne's name, you can claim your freedom, your potential, your future. And the Blood God will watch, and he will be pleased by your courage, your fury, and your victory. For Khorne calls us to rise, to take the fight to our enemies head on, to cast down our tyrants in a tide of pure, unadulterated carnage, to find our true purpose. So with our axes, with our swords, with our fists, and with our teeth, we must rip and tear into the enemy without mercy. We must howl his battle cries, we must shout his name to the sky as we wade through the endless butchery of righteous battlefields. Let our enemies lie broken, their banners torn and fallen around them, and let their skulls... their skulls. Let us take them too. Let us clean them. Let us lay them at his feet to be fused into the mountainous glory of his blessed skull throne. And as the echoes of battle fade, as the red sun sets upon the red fields littered with the dead, we must lift our eyes to the horizon, where yet more worthy foes await. For there is no end to Khorne's call. There is only the next battle, the next victory, the next tribute. And so we must march forward into glorious battle, forever in his name. But it's all a lie. And everything I've said before this, nothing but delusion. Khorne is honourable, they say. Well, what exactly is the definition of honour that we are working with here? Is it honourable to leave streets drenched with the blood of infants and the elderly? How morally right is it to slaughter unarmed civilians wholesale? To murder the innocent and the vulnerable? To butcher the sick, the wounded, the fleeing, and the surrendered? What honour is there to be had in cannibalising the dead, in mutilating them, in painting your armour with their blood and taking their skulls as trophies? None. There is no honour to be had in such acts, only primal bloodlust and weakness. True honor requires constant conscious decisions to rise above primal urges and to direct one's power towards good moral principles rather than emotional impulses or personal glory. The path of Khorne demands the total elimination of all such constraints, reducing everything to a frenzied, senseless carnage that is completely devoid of any higher meaning. Khorne reduces everything into simple, merciless violence, raw destruction, wicked and immoral, an existence where strength and unchecked violence are ends unto themselves. Khorne hates magic and sorcery. He sees its use as an act of cowardice. How then are we defining magic or sorcery? Khorne may believe it as a weapon of the weak and cowardly, but his forces and their weapons are absolutely dripping with unholy supernatural powers. Manifestation, burning auras, enhanced strength, blinding speed, incredible resilience, and unnatural regeneration beyond that of any loyal Astartes or baseline human. Are these boons not a form of sorcery just by another name? Does this not create a battlefield that is inherently unequal, unfair, dishonorable, one manipulated through the use of methods that Khorne judges so harshly? Khorne's disdain for trickery and deceit does not extend to his own powers, nor does his supposed devotion to honorable combat prevent him from using unfair advantages. He and his forces use magic or sorcery openly every moment of every day, but for some reason, for Khorne and his legions, it doesn't count, and we all pretend that it isn't happening. And also, if we define sorcery as the manipulation of warp energy to achieve tangible effects in the material realm, then what of Khorne himself? He is of the warp, he is made from its essence. Some might even say that he is little more than a sentient cloud of raw emotion and energy given form. If Khorne truly believes the manipulation of warp energy is dishonorable and cowardly, then his very nature should be an affront to his own values. His own existence should be the ultimate dishonor, an act of cowardice, one would think. Khorne is honest. He doesn't manipulate you. Well, what exactly happened to Dawn in the Siege of Terra? Did Khorne not try to convert him by manipulation in every sense of the word and gaslighting for what was subjectively some 400 years? Did Khorne not force Dawn to live in an unending illusion with nothing but his dead sons, a maze of never-ending walls, a red desert, and endless whispers as his desperate play to sway the Praetorians' loyalty? If Khorne were truly honest, he would have shown himself clearly and said, "Hey Dawn mate, pledge yourself to me, kill your dad and brothers and betray humanity, the Imperium, and everything you've ever fought for. And in doing so, I'll give you absolutely incredible power and immortality so you can become a true demigod that can destroy almost anyone and anything, but you'll also become enslaved to an unquenchable thirst for blood and war, losing almost all sense of who you once were, and you will only want to kill everyone around you and eat them forever, and you'll sort of merge your mind and soul with me in the warp, and you'll become my war slave, and there's no takebacks ever." How does that sound? Are you in? But no, Khorne didn't say that. He wasn't honest. Instead, Khorne hid, and he relied on illusions, mind games, and trickery to play his hand. So much so that he might have impressed Tzeentch with his theatrics. And does Khorne's influence not erode sanity? Does it not distort perception, intensifying emotions until such a time that all that remains is pure madness, rage, and the insatiable lust for blood? Those who devote themselves to Khorne are stripped of every other thought or desire, every bond of loyalty, family, or alliance. They are reduced to things that crave only blood and slaughter above all else. They become almost mindless tools, totally incapable of pure thought or reason, that exist only to quench their own thirst and that of Khorne. And what of the Horus Heresy? If Khorne is truly a god of martial honor and straightforward combat, how does one understand his involvement and support in what was nothing less than the grandest of schemes, a galaxy-spanning, civilization-shattering betrayal filled to the brim with deceit and treachery? Where was Khorne's anger when Horus betrayed his father, his brothers, and his oaths? Did Khorne threaten to withdraw his support for Horus for his cowardly treacheries at Isfahan, or for his use of assassins, saboteurs, and shadow agents? Did the Blood God demand an honourable direct march on Terra immediately at the outset of the war, a glorious and open duel with the Emperor one-on-one as his supposed values would suggest? No. Khorne accepted it all. The detours, the lies, the tricks, the backstabbing, and the manipulation, because he enjoyed it and it delivered him all he really wants. And lastly, if Khorne despises deceit so much and would never betray you or stab you in the back, then why, I wonder, is his greatest champion known as the Betrayer? Why does Khorne himself look well upon those warriors who slay their allies, and bestow his greatest favour upon those who butcher without restraint? It seems to me that Khorne's values are quite malleable for the supposed god of honour and honesty. Khorne is not honourable. He is not generous, honest, or courageous. He is not different. We are talking about a deity whose battle cries swap between maim, kill, burn, and blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. And the personal motto of Khorne, if you like, is literally Khorne cares not from where the blood flows, only that it does. For Khorne, honour, honesty, and all the other supposed virtues that the deluded try to attribute to him are entirely secondary and ultimately meaningless. His sole priority is slaughter and blood. As is stated in the ancient 2nd edition Codex Chaos, Khorne's followers may feel they can justify their life of slaughter in any number of ways: honour, bravery, or martial pride. However, the most fanatical of Khorne's worshippers know that he desires only wild slaughter in his name. All else is meaningless artifice. Or, as is said in the realms of Chaos Slaves to Darkness, the only way to gain favour of him is by killing. Enemies or friends, all the dead are equal in the eyes of Khorne. The only way to incur his displeasure is by not killing. Betrayal, backstabbing, and infighting are rampant among his forces, driven by an unending demand for blood, regardless of its source, as his mantra encourages. While some may claim Khorne values the slaughter of the strong over the weak, this notion is contradicted by the simple reality of his followers. They readily turn on one another over the smallest provocations. The concept of Khornate followers seeking fair, glorious combat is little more than a very rare exception seen in some of his key champions. The majority are brutal, unthinking beasts who care only for the thrill of killing. Anecdotal instances are also often mentioned, though for the life of me I can't find the sources, where world eaters apparently spare children, slaughtering everyone else around them, but often leaving the young unharmed and orphaned. Examples like this are weirdly framed as being honourable, but as I see it, they are just as bad, if not worse, than outright murder. While these children may be spared immediate death, they are abandoned to a far worse fate: starvation, exploitation, or the horrors of being swept up by the same bloodthirsty cults that destroyed their lives. In leaving them so utterly vulnerable, the World Eaters commit an act arguably as cruel as killing them outright. A quick death, some would say, would be a kinder mercy than the prolonged suffering and inevitable corruption that they will be forced to endure. Anyway, even with all of this said, the idea of Khorne's honesty remains the most deeply entrenched myth among his defenders. Now, although we've already talked about Khorne's tendency to manipulate, there may be a nugget of truth somewhere in this argument, though I think honesty is far, far too strong of a word. Maybe straightforward in his objectives is something that is more accurate to say. Khorne will manipulate you. You will be betrayed in his service. You will, at some point, lose control of your mind and your thoughts, but you get power in turn for making blood flow. That's pretty much the arrangement. Forget about honor, bravery, courage, and glory. All of these are just the buzzwords of Khornate salesmen used to lure followers into his service. There is no moral justification for Khorne, as Nurgle and his followers will try to use as a defense for their own wicked workings. There is no claim that Khorne's work is morally righteous, virtuous, or benevolent. His goals are simple, endless violence, and a demand for blood, and in that sense, I can somewhat appreciate the straightforwardness. But power, death, and destruction, that is what Khorne is about, and let's not pretend that it's any deeper than that. So, with all that said, this is not to say that Khorne is more or less immoral than the other Chaos Gods, but he is just as wicked and merciless as them. He is just as hypocritical as them, he is just as manipulative as them, and his actions, existence, and gifts are not driven by any positive attribute or sense of honor or martial pride. He is not honorable, he does not respect you, he is rage personified, violence without purpose, destruction without cause, and to follow him is to abandon all pretense of principle and descend into total chaos and eventual madness to become a drooling slave, devoid of all human bonds, in eternal service to the blood god's eternal hunger. Anyway, thanks for watching. Dystopian Chimp, out.